Breaking news this evening. Huge clashes between the Ayatollah's henchmen and demonstrators have erupted right across every single one of Iran's provinces this evening. Huge anti-regime protests are now in their 12th night. It's the biggest yet, and Iran has hit a tipping point. The protests have so far spread to 111 cities and towns across all 31 provinces. At least 34 people are dead. Let's be honest, that number is clearly far, far higher. We just haven't been able to update that yet. Why? Because there is currently a nationwide internet and phone signal blackout. One of the things that you will have seen on your screen there, though, very telling this, was a march of Iranian women. They have had enough. Now, if you watch the BBC, they say that this protest is basically all about economic decline. But, of course, we know the truth, really. It's about the fall of the Islamist regime and the Ayatollah. And joining me now is the founder of Iran Front Vahid Beheshti, a man who was very nearly killed in this country by the Ayatollah's henchmen right here in Britain. Vahid, thank you very, very much. Please, please, please give me the latest from what you're hearing from Iran.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me on your show. As you know, today is the day 1053 of our sit-in protest in front of Foreign Office in King's Charles Street. We are still here day and night since nearly 3 years in order to prescribe IRGC. And now it's the end of this regime. I think our government is very incompetent and that they are not going to prescribe IRGC and the regime will collapse before that. But let's call it, I think, Patrick, you call it very right, compared to any of the reporters and any of the journalists that I saw in past 12 days. This is full-scale revolution, Iranian national revolution. As far as I understand, more than 136 cities. I don't know much for past 3 hours. The internet has been shut down all over the country. More than, you said 34, and you said we don't have enough information. What I know is more than 60 people. So far, I don't know how many of my compatriots tonight they have been shot dead, because when they shut down the internet, that's a sign that they are going to go for mass killing in different cities.
Just on that, it's an important point. So as far as you understand, you think that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has very much started shooting in a big way these protesters?
Definitely. This is what happened 5-6 years ago. They shut down internet for 3 days and they killed more than 1,500 innocent people. And tonight is the sign of that. When they shut down the internet completely, that is that. But this is, as you said, this is misleading. When you see some reporters, some news channels, like BBC, they say this is economic uprising. Yes, start with merchants, start from bazaar, but this is full-scale revolution with the aim of overthrowing this evil regime. The people of Iran had enough. These great people of one of the wealthiest country, 5th wealthiest country, reduced to the victim of poverty and struggling today. They have nothing to lose, Patrick, except revolution. And as you see, they are confronting their Ayatollah's agents with bare hands, and they're risking their life, and they're not going to stop. Let me make this clear, Patrick. This is very important on your show. We Iranian at this time, as you know, we are very diverse, but we all are united on one thing. This regime must go. We want freedom. But where we are not united, who comes to power, who takes over. This is where we don't have to go near it now, because we need all unity to overthrow the regime.
Can I just come in there? Sorry, exactly. That question about who fills this vacuum is possibly maybe a story for tomorrow, but the reason I want to ask you this, you have nearly lost your life on the streets of Britain because you were attacked by the Ayatollah's henchmen here. We know that there are Iranian terrorist sleeper cells here in Britain. We know that they've been targeting the English Channel. We know that there are bases for the Ayatollah here as well. So, Vahid, what does this, what we're looking at on our screens now in Iran, mean for us here in Britain?
This is, I'm talking to my the British citizen, to my friends, to the people who I lived with them for 28 years, for this beautiful country that they gave me when I came as a refugee. They gave me my right. They gave me freedom. They gave me this freedom for 1,053 days act. This is my message to them. This is not the problem of Iranian people. This is your problem, because the Iranian regime is the source of this mad, extreme Islamist ideology that we are witnessing in the streets of London, in the streets of different European cities. Now, Iranian people are fighting for all of us. They are fighting with this evil regime to get rid of this regime. Now is the time to help them. They don't ask for much. They are fighting for us. They're risking their life. We need to help them. President Trump promised, he said he's going to help them. We have to see how it's going to go. But this is not the time to be quiet. I'm talking to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, you've been quiet for a long time. What is your principle when it's come to human rights?
Well, the breaking news this evening, in what could turn out to be a historic evening, is violent clashes between the Ayatollah's henchmen and thousands, if not millions, actually millions of demonstrators in Iran. Widespread anti-regime protests. It's their 12th and their significantly largest night. OK, so the protests have so far spread to at least 111 cities and towns across all of Iran's 31 provinces. We understand that the death toll is currently, well, the official death toll at the moment is 34. I'm just going to say that's obviously ridiculous. And the reason why we can't bring you any updates on that is because the Ayatollah's henchmen have turned off Iran's telephone and internet connections. And what you are seeing largely now will be clips, some of them, from a couple of hours ago. There are somehow some people getting more up-to-date clips out on social media, and I'm looking at ones in front of me right now which are from Tehran, which show tens of thousands of people appearing to march on the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's headquarters. We're also seeing multiple vehicles on fire, and apparently, according to the sources here, they belong to their security forces. So this is shaping up quite possibly to be the fall of Iran. What will it mean for the Ayatollah? Will he stay? Has he already fled to Russia? Will he stay in Russia? Who knows? Anyway, the protests began on the 28th of December amid massive economic crisis, but that is basically inaccurate to say that this is all because of the economy. It's not. It's because they are fed up of the Ayatollah and his vile Islamist regime that has been plaguing not just Iran, but the Middle East and Europe as well. Closer to home, the BBC has faced accusations that it has so far largely ignored these protests. The Israeli embassy publicly claimed the corporation has maintained near total silence on the protests whilst giving excessive attention to the conflict in Gaza. Just in that advert break there, I went outside and I wanted to double check whether or not we'd heard anything from our Prime Minister, from our Foreign Secretary, or from really anyone of note in this country in the Labour government. And unless I've missed it, I can't see a single thing. This could be the fall of Iran, and at the moment, our government appears to be largely silent on this issue. I'm joined now by the defence and security expert, Philip Ingram. Look, Philip, what do you make of what we're seeing here now? Is this as serious as it seems? Do you think this is the fall of the Ayatollah? What do you think?
Well, Patrick, it's probably too early to say it's the fall of the Ayatollah, but it seems to be that the Iranian regime is collapsing. Whether they can stop that collapse or whether it is going to continue and we'll see the Ayatollah being kicked out is something that will come apparent in the next day or two. And it's significant that Donald Trump made a statement earlier today threatening the Iranian regime that if they started to shoot the protesters, then he would step in and step in very hard indeed. I think we are on the brink of the collapse of the Islamic regime in Iran, which took power in a coup in 1979.
Yeah, I mean, it looks that way. It's difficult to see. It's difficult to see how they come back from this. I mean, this is an unprecedented level of protest and demonstration across, as we understand it, every single one of Iran's provinces. The concern is, Philip, with this media blackout. I was speaking to a guest earlier on who is an Iranian asylum seeker here in Britain. He's been here many, many years, but he was nearly killed. He was attacked with knives outside the Iranian embassy in London by some of the Ayatollah's foot soldiers right here in Britain. And he said that the last time that they did a media blackout and an internet blackout, they killed several thousand people during it. And the concern is that that's what's happening now in Iran, I think, isn't it?
It is the concern. You know, the Ayatollah's henchmen or the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. Now, they are separate to the Iranian military, and there are effectively two governments. There's the government run by the Ayatollah, and then there's the official government with the president. But it's the Ayatollah's government that trumps the other one. So there's one that plays at party political games and plays at running a parliament and everything else. But it's actually diktats from the Ayatollah, who's backed by this Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, who have got a force called the Quds Force that provide these sort of terror-type organizations that are based around their embassies around the world that deal with dissidents, but they also then back up a lot of the terror groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and other groups around Iraq and elsewhere. And we've seen a collapse of Iran's influence across the Middle East. And we've seen an increase in protests in Iran itself over coming weeks and months.
Can I ask you what this means for us here in Britain? Because, look, the way that the modern world is, especially Europe and especially, unfortunately, Great Britain, is that whenever there's a major conflict anywhere in the world, it affects us directly here because more often than not, we've welcomed in both sides of that conflict, either legally or, of course, with what we're seeing on the ongoing illegal migrant crisis. We know that the Iranian regime, and this is directly from MI5, have trying to plot potentially lethal terror threats in Britain. Up to 20 Iran-backed terrorist plots have been foiled in Britain since 2022. Many of them were apparently targeting Jewish individuals, some of them more widespread. There is an Iranian trio that's been accused of spying in the UK who arrived in the country on lorries and small boats, exploiting the migrant crisis for their own ends. There are also various different mosques in Britain which are backed by the Ayatollah, including a couple where the imam of that mosque is appointed by the Ayatollah and where they mourned openly the death of Qasem Soleimani, who was, of course, killed by President Trump in his last tenure as president. How do you see what's happening in Iran now playing out on the streets of Britain?
I think it's a difficult one. The Iranian government may try and lash out and create unrest in different countries around the world. However, I think they've got bigger problems at home, and therefore, there is unlikely to be Iranian-sponsored disruption in the UK and terror activity in the UK, whilst they're trying to go for regime survival in Iran. There's a bigger potential that what they'll try and do is do something to disrupt oil flow through the Straits of Hormuz, which would have a massive economic impact and shock across the world and could put our fuel prices through the roof because that is a last ditch attempt to try and impact the global economy. But whether they've got the ability to do that or not, whether this protest that's going on is focusing on purely domestic. We just don't know at the minute because they've cut the internet off. We're seeing the mass demonstrations. We need to look for defections amongst the police. We're seeing that in some of the different towns and cities.
So we are we, Philip?
Amongst...
Sorry, just on that, because that's a really important point, because that is really another sign that it could be all over for the
a couple of nights ago we saw that reports of that in one city. I haven't seen it reported anywhere else. The next thing I'll be looking for would be the military starting to put their arms down, but that would be the regular military. The Revolutionary Guards Corps are really hardcore. If they start turning, then that's game over for the regime. And there's a lot of chatter about the old Shah of Iran and his family coming back in to set up a monarchy again.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, I think that question of what happens next is well, we have to wait for the first things to happen, don't we? Which is whether or not the Ayatollah actually goes. Just on that, Philip. I mean, there have been numerous reports in the last couple of days about whether or not the Ayatollah and the mullahs will go to Russia, whether or not they might have already gone. Yeah. What do you suspect is going on there? What do you think will happen?
Well, they're trying to escape to somewhere. They've lost their immediate support within the region. That would have been Syria. That's gone. We've got this alliance that's on between Russia, Iran, North Korea and China, the CRINC countries, the coalition, the evil coalition that's out there. They'll not go to China because the Chinese don't want Muslim extremists in there. They'll not go to North Korea because, again, Kim Jong-un doesn't want extremists there. So their only option is to try and go to Vladimir Putin in Russia. He hasn't given Bashar al-Assad a really easy time since he escaped from Syria. So they're not going to be in for an easy time, but it could be somewhere that they escape to. And once they leave the country, then their regime will collapse.
OK, well, look, Philip, thank you very, very much. We're going to keep you right up to date here on GB News and just tease ahead to something I've got in the next hour as well. Going to be speaking to Vahid Beheshti, who was that gentleman who I was saying was nearly killed here on the streets of London. We're also going to be speaking to another gentleman as well to give us the very latest from Iran. Philip, thank you very much. Philip Ingram there is defence and security expert. Just like I said, a couple of things to watch. Will the Americans get involved tonight? What will happen to the Ayatollahs? How widespread is this? And what kind of action are the Iranian Revolutionary Guard going to take, both in Iran, but also their henchmen here in Britain? We'll keep you bang up to date. Coming up.